working ahead on some things for the summer, and let me tell you, the NFL is very high on USC quarterback Caleb Williams, and in an Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence kind of way, he is unbelievable. And that was according to a QB's coach, and that was per Albert Breer. So, Tyler, thoughts on the very, very good feelings on Caleb Williams from one of these quarterback coaches in the NFL?
Yeah, I think the hype is warranted and is real there. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was number one or number two on every available recruiting website's rankings when he was a 5-star recruit, originally committed to not to Brent Venable, to Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma, and then obviously followed him to USC. We saw him, the success that he had winning the Heisman. I mean, I think he's probably, if you're not going to get excited for that guy, who are you going to get excited for? So I'm into the hype, and I've already made multiple attempts. It seems like it's too late at this point, probably, to trade up for those one or two top picks, because you have Caleb Williams, then also another guy people are excited about, obviously not as much so, in Drake May at the top of next year's, likely at the top of next year's quarterback class. Things always shift during the season, but yeah, I think he, in my humble opinion, definitely fits that same vein as a Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, all those guys that just, you look to build your franchise around.
Jake, in agreement on that one?
100%. Hard to argue in any fashion against Caleb Williams, for as special as he's been since he was at Oklahoma. I do want to share a couple of not nuggets, but names with you. So we've got number one overall picks the last 15 or so years in the NFL draft. Number one overall, not first rounders. These are quarterbacks: Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Sam Bradford, Matthew Stafford, Jamarcus Russell, Alex Smith. So that's 15, 17 years right there. And you're looking at 10, 12 names. How many of those do you want to be your franchise quarterback? Or how many of those would you have taken to be your franchise quarterback at the number one overall pick, which is where we logically expect Caleb Williams to go, barring something astronomical or, some sort of horrific, awful injury that we won't even talk about here. So if he goes number one overall, I think, in my personal opinion, I would take half of those quarterbacks to be my franchise player to win me a Super Bowl in the National Football League. And so it's not to say you can't, the stats are the stats, and Caleb Williams is his own player, but I just think it's fascinating that you compare him to Andrew Luck, but also can you compare him to the other 10, 11 players that were drafted, quarterbacks that were drafted number one overall? And so you could say the stats are the stats, and that he has a 50% chance to be your dynasty quarterback or your franchise quarterback. And I think that is so fascinating to me because Caleb Williams is so special. I don't watch Pac-12 football, but I stayed up 2 or 3 times later than I care to talk about to watch Caleb Williams on the Pac-12 network or whatever godforsaken channel that he was on, because it was never national television. Because he's so special and just changes the game so much. And I mean, it's not unfair to say that he reminds me a lot of Michael Vick in just the way that he can change the outcome of a particular play. I think that's the fair way to say it. But you just look, the stats are the stats, and you say, okay, should I really give up everything for him? If you believe in him, absolutely. But the stats tell you the last 15 years or so, he's got a 50% chance to truly be as special as I think we all are in agreement that he is.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild, like you're saying. I feel like the term generational, it's tough when it seems like, when you feel like you hear it more often. I think like when you think of in our, I guess, generation, you can say, if you hear it a couple of times, you're then kind of thinking like, all right, well, how many of these guys can there possibly be? Is the thought that they're sincerely getting that much better, and they're better than the previous generational guy who was really only a couple years ago? Or is the thought they're all on a similar tier, but really it depends on where they land, their weapons, their coaching, and like that maybe helps determine, like, do they make it generational, or do they just become a perennial all-pro type
Great
thing?
point.
So, very curious to see which of the teams positions themselves very well to be drafting him. And then one I'd been hearing a little bit, with Kyler Murray coming back off of injury, who knows if they attempt to basically not tank the season necessarily, but some wild scenario of maybe Caleb Williams going there, and then maybe the Vikings get rid of Kirk Cousins, then they get Kyler Murray. It's a scenario I've heard once that I'm infatuated by because now I'm just imagining Kyler getting to go play with Justin Jefferson and Caleb Williams coming in, and then the Cardinals just revamping that whole team. But I'll leave that for another day. All right, fellas. Well,
you're just trying to relive your Josh Rosen, your draft vicariously through Kyler Murray moving out of Arizona.
Let me just tell you, the beginning of my, I don't even think career is a nicer way to put it, dynasty career, drafting Josh Rosen, following it up, and let's see, it was Rosen, Flacco, and Stafford, I'm pretty sure, in that first draft, because I didn't know what Superflex meant, apparently. And then the following year, I'm pretty sure I drafted Dwayne Haskins, RIP. It's been rough. But I have Geno Smith, who I picked up. It was him and Locke off of last season, so he is the one shining light in terms of quarterbacks on the team in our league. So I'm going to go cry about it after the episode. I'm going to hold it in for now.